afternoon, everyone. This is Stephanie. It was a very nice day. It's been sort of like that rain and sun, and I guess it's actually just crossed over into rain, but there were a couple rainbows earlier. I'm just taking a walk here. There goes the mailman. I'm just taking a walk here in the lane just outside our house. And it's actually a really interesting place. And so while I'm taking this lovely walk, and it might rain on me, I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the cool place that we live, which even though we live in a house that's from the 1970s, the place that it's on is actually much cooler than our house itself. So the road that I'm walking on right now is a private lane. So that's the beginning of it. That's the street right there. And then if you turn around, it extends all the way down behind me, and it goes all the way down to the river. So the land that our house is on, and we don't own our house, we rent it. So calling it our house is kind of, you know, dreams. But so the house that we live in is on a piece of land that formerly belonged to the Buchanan estate. And the Buchanan estate was one of the seats of the Dukes of Montrose. Now, I'm not going to pretend that I know everything about this family or anything, but it has some pretty interesting buildings on the estate. So there was a castle called Buchanan Castle, but basically it was the house of the estate. It is an 18th century elegant mansion. I believe it was actually done by William Adam, who is the father of Robert Adam, but I would need to check that, so don't quote me on that. But so potentially by quite a big famous neoclassical architect. But in the mid 1800s, that house was sort of semi-demolished and taken down, and a new house was built, which is the current Buchanan Castle. And so that Buchanan Castle was built in, I think the date is 1854. And what's really cool is that so often what you get on these estates is not just, oh, we're gonna build a new house, but that construction often signals and goes along with a whole other phase of construction. And since we have a huge estate, you know, many hundreds of acres, you know, there could be many houses or different farms and cottages on the estate, it often coincides with a whole redevelopment of the entire estate. So while they were building that house in 1854, they also built a new entrance to the estate. They built a new road, and that is the road that I'm walking on right now. So not many people can actually date the existence of a road, because roads are sort of paths, they're older than time, but this road that I'm walking on only existed in 1854. And what's also cool is that there are buildings along the road that coincide with that and help tell that story. So up at the road where I've just come from, there is a lovely gate lodge. And also up there is this magnificent set of wrought iron gates. And these gates, according to the Canmore Royal Commission and Historic Scotland database, were gifted to whatever Duke of Montrose that was by Queen Victoria herself. And the gates themselves are actually B-listed. So the cottage up there and the cottage that we're going to come to down here by the river are actually C-listed, but the gates themselves are listed more importantly than the actual buildings along this road. And then the building down at the end is this sweet little cottage. I mean, it's another sort of gatekeeper's cottage. There must have been another gate farther down, and it's right at the river, and it just sits in this beautiful sort of almost floodplain of the river right by an old Victorian bridge there as well, which would also date, we have to assume, from the same phase of development. So, you know, all these buildings and this road go into telling one story of this estate. And, you know, even though you think, oh, they're just building the castle, you know, okay, the rich person's building a new house. But actually that rich person building their new house in 1854 means that we have not just that house, but then the little house down by the river, and then the gatehouse up by the road, and then the gates themselves, which are a feature of the big road going between Balloch and Stirling. And then even the very road that we now can live on in our 1970s house only can exist because someone in 1854 built this road that it could be on. I think that's pretty cool. And what's more, the irony of that whole situation is that Buchanan Castle actually now is a ruin. So, I mean, it's a very beautiful ruin. I'll take you in there sometime. I'll show you a photo just now. Buchanan Castle is a very beautiful ruin, but it's a ruin. But the road and that cottage are still lived in, or still used every single day. And I think that's really cool. So even though the big thing, you know, has become defunct, fallen into disrepair, but the legacy of that is what I live on. So this is the house of our neighbors, Gary and Mel and their daughters. This is also dates from around 1854, and you can just see it has the most pretty setting right here on the river. So this is our 1854 bridge, which is looking a lot more overgrown than it did last time I was here, which is a couple months ago. And they also put up these amazing gates, which last time I was here, they were lying broken and leaning up against the side. But, you know, maybe they've had some problem with trespassing. You know, cars are always trying to get down here and poke around. So someone's put those up. That's pretty cool. So this is a pretty cool bridge as well. This also dates from that 1854 period, which you can see from, you know, the nice sort of elegant molding on top of this capstone on the gateway to the bridge here. But it had some alterations. I think this is a date plaque, so 40s or 50s, where they cut into, you know, this Victorian stone pier quite viciously and inserted some, you know, steel bridging. So I just love this setting by the river here. I love going into here. It looks like a spooky forest. And actually, if you follow this road for another, maybe I'd say a mile, it actually takes you straight to Buchanan Castle. So that ties in really wonderfully with the story of this road. So it's the road, it's the two cottages, it's the bridge, and it's the path that leads all the way to the ruined castle at the center of things. So that is where we are lucky enough to live. So I hope you enjoyed that little snippet of history about the Buchanan estate.